There's a certain kind of person you've probably met, maybe you even are this person, who is quietly building something, working on something, changing something about their life. And if you ask them how it's going, they'll give you a small smile and say, "It's fine," and then change the subject. Not because they are hiding it, not because they are ashamed, but because something inside them knows, almost instinctively, that talking about it would somehow make it smaller. Most people around them don't understand this. They call it secretive, private, maybe even a little arrogant. Why won't they just share what they are working on? And so the quiet ones learn, over time, to feel slightly out of place in conversations where everyone else is announcing their next big thing. But here's what nobody tells you about that silence. It isn't a flaw. It's a signal. What we're really talking about is a deeply misunderstood pattern, one that shows up consistently in people with unusually high levels of follow-through. People who don't just start things, but finish them. Quietly, without fanfare, and often, without anyone knowing until it's already done. This isn't about being mysterious. It isn't a strategy they read in a book. For most of these people, it's something that developed long before they had the language to explain it. And psychology has a lot to say about why. There's a phenomenon researchers have studied for decades now, sometimes called social reality substitution. When you tell someone your goal, especially with excitement, especially to someone who responds positively, your brain registers something unusual. It begins to experience a version of the satisfaction that comes from actually achieving the goal. The acknowledgement, the approval, the identity of being someone who is doing that thing. It arrives early. And what arrives early, the brain doesn't always feel the urgent need to chase. A well-known series of studies by psychologist Peter Gollwitzer found that people who shared their intentions with others, particularly when those others recognized and validated the identity behind the goal, were measurably less likely to complete the work. Not because they were lazy, but because the announcement itself had already partially fulfilled the need. The brain doesn't always distinguish cleanly between the reality of doing something and the social experience of being seen as someone who does it. And for some people, the ones who are wired to feel this substitution effect more acutely, talking about a goal isn't motivating. It's quietly deflating, even if they can't explain why. This often traces back further than people expect. Many who developed this pattern grew up in environments where what they said they would do was scrutinized, questioned, or commented on before they'd had a chance to even begin. Some were praised so early and so enthusiastically that the praise itself became the end point, rather than the work. Others learned through repeated experience that announcing an intention opened the door to unsolicited opinions, doubts, comparisons. And so, over time, the nervous system learned to protect the goal by keeping it internal. To hold it close, not out of secrecy, but out of a kind of preservation instinct. The goal becomes sacred, in a way, precisely because it hasn't been handed to anyone else yet. It's worth saying clearly, this is not a superior way to operate. There are people who are genuinely energized by speaking their goals out loud, who use social accountability as fuel, who need the external structure of having told someone, because that commitment is what keeps them moving. Neither pattern is more evolved. Neither is more psychologically healthy. They are simply different architectures, different ways the mind learned to sustain itself toward something it wants. But here's the part that often surprises people when they first encounter it. The quiet ones, the ones who protect their goals with silence, aren't actually silent about everything. Watch them closely and you'll notice something. They talk freely about what they are learning, about what they've already done, about the process, in small fragments. What they almost never do is announce the destination before they've moved toward it. There's a subtle but profound distinction between sharing a journey and declaring a future identity. And the disciplined ones, almost universally, are much more comfortable with the former. That distinction, between process and proclamation, is where their energy lives. They are not withholding from the world. They are protecting the momentum from something that, for them, drains it. There's also a quieter cost to this pattern that's worth sitting with. Because the same instinct that protects the goal can sometimes create distance. People who love them want to be let in, want to celebrate alongside them. And the quiet ones can sometimes carry their work so privately that even their own victories feel strangely hollow, because no one was there to witness them. The habit of protection can outlast its usefulness. If you recognize yourself in this, if you've always felt that strange deflation after talking about something you care about, if you've ever noticed that the moment you announce something, some part of you loses interest in it, you're not broken, and you're not avoidant. You simply learned, somewhere along the way, to keep the flame covered so it wouldn't go out. That instinct has protected a lot of your work. It's gotten things finished that might otherwise have dissolved into conversation. And if you're still figuring out what to do with people who want you to share more, how to let them in without losing that quiet internal fire, that's worth exploring too. Because it turns out, the way highly disciplined people eventually learn to connect without losing their momentum is a pattern all its own.